Exodus is about the deliverance of the Israelites from suffering in Egypt by God. It spans 40 chapters, which we'll explore one by one. Exodus 1. A new Pharaoh, who does not know Joseph, subjects the Israelites to hardship. Fearing their numbers, he imposes harsher conditions on them. Exodus 2. Amidst oppression, Moses is born. His mother, Jochebed, places him in a basket in the Nile, where he's found and adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. Later, Moses kills an Egyptian and flees. Exodus 3. At 80, Moses encounters God in a burning bush in Midian. God introduces himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and assigns Moses to rescue his people. Exodus 4. Moses hesitates, citing his lack of eloquence, but God commands him to confront Pharaoh. Exodus 5. Moses and Aaron ask Pharaoh to release the Israelites. Pharaoh, denying Yahweh and unwilling to lose labor, increases their burden. Exodus 6. Knowing Pharaoh's stubbornness, God promises to liberate the Israelites with his power. Exodus 7. Moses demonstrates God's power before Pharaoh, turning a staff into a snake and water into blood. But Pharaoh's heart remains hard. Exodus 8. Despite plagues of frogs, lice, and flies, Pharaoh remains unmoved. Exodus 9. Additional plagues of livestock, disease, boils, and hail strike Egypt, yet Pharaoh stands firm. Exodus 10. Only after locusts and darkness does Pharaoh seem to yield, but then he retracts. Exodus 11. God announces the death of Egypt's firstborn, prompting preparations for the Israelites' departure. Exodus 12. God instructs the Passover observance, ordering each family to prepare a lamb. Exodus 13. At Passover, families slaughter a lamb at twilight, marking their doorposts with its blood to protect against the angel of death. Firstborns in homes without the blood are killed. Exodus 14. After losing his son, Pharaoh allows the departure. He soon pursues them, but God parts the Red Sea, allowing Israel to cross and drowning the Egyptian army. Exodus 15. Israel celebrates the crossing with song and dance, led by Miriam and the women. Exodus 16. In the wilderness, the Israelites long for Egyptian meat. God provides manna and quails. Exodus 17. At Rephidim, without water, they complain. God commands Moses to strike a rock, producing water. Victory over Amalek comes as Moses raises his hands, emphasizing prayer's power. Exodus 18. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, advises, selecting leaders to share his burden. Exodus 19. Moses ascends Mount Sinai to hear God's commandments. Exodus 20. God gives the 10 Commandments, laws the Israelites must follow. Exodus 21. Details on the treatment of servants, and regulations for resolving disputes among neighbors are given. Exodus 22. Discusses laws for handling material damages between neighbors, emphasizing restitution and justice in interpersonal relationships. Exodus 23 contains admonitions not to follow the majority in doing wrong, and instructions to observe God's festivals, highlighting the importance of justice and religious observance. Exodus 24. Moses writes down God's commandments and seals the covenant with blood, underscoring the solemnity of the Israelites' commitment to God. Exodus 25. God instructs the construction of the tabernacle for worship, including details on the Ark of the Covenant, the table for showbread, and the lampstand, signifying God's desire to dwell among his people. Exodus 26. Instructions for the tabernacles. Curtains are given, emphasizing the separation and holiness of the space dedicated to God. Exodus 27 describes the altar for burnt offerings, the courtyard, and the oil for the lampstand, focusing on the means and place of worship. Exodus 28 Aaron and his descendants are chosen as priests, signifying the establishment of a hereditary priesthood to mediate between God and Israel. Exodus 29 records the consecration ceremony for the priests, detailing the sacred rituals that set them apart for service to God. Exodus 30 the altar of incense and the recipe for the incense are described, pointing to the continuous act of worship and prayer. Exodus 31 Bezalel is named as the chief artisan for the tabernacle, emphasizing the role of divinely inspired craftsmanship in worship. Exodus 32 While Moses is on Mount Sinai, the Israelites create and worship a golden calf, demonstrating their infidelity and impatience. Exodus 33 God threatens to abandon the disobedient Israelites but relents due to Moses' intercession, highlighting Moses' role as a mediator. Exodus 34 God renews the covenant, giving Moses new tablets of the Ten Commandments, and Moses' face shines after seeing God's glory, illustrating the renewal of the covenant and the impact of divine encounter. Exodus 35 The construction of the tabernacle is described again, emphasizing communal involvement and contribution to the sacred space. Exodus 36 Instructions are given for making the coverings for the tabernacle, stressing the detailed care and craftsmanship required. Exodus 37 The construction of the ark, the table for showbread, the lampstand, and the altar of incense are detailed, focusing on the central items of worship. Exodus 38 The making of the altar of burnt offering and the bronze basin are instructed, continuing the focus on the means of purification and sacrifice. Exodus 39 The creation of the priestly garments is completed, and the tabernacle's furnishings are summarized, marking the completion of preparations for worship. Exodus 40 The tabernacle is assembled, and God's glory fills it, represented by a cloud by day and fire by night, signifying God's presence and guidance among His people.